So as our sister mentioned, it's ironical that, giving thanks for usurping, another people's land and then saying, well, this was given to us, is kind of like exactly the same thing that happened in Palestine. It was just a rinse and repeat kind of a thing. But anyway, that narrative aside, the concept of giving thanks. So somebody asked me, my father asked me, do you guys, do you celebrate birthdays? I said, yes, of course, every day, because every day when we wake up, it's a birth. So unfortunately, you're only observing this, once a year, but we are to observe it every time we wake up. When we wake up in the morning, what do we say? Alhamdulillah, alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhi an-nushur. All praise to Allah who has brought us back to life after putting us into a state of death, because actually sleep is the sister of death. It's a situation where we're out of this universe and we're in another between, life and death. And many people go on to the sphere of the next world. They never return from their sleep. So every time we return from our sleep, we should be grateful for that. And then reminding ourselves, وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ, and that back to Him is our return. And so that is ultimately, our end. And for that, we are actually, living our lives for that day. One of my friends, he says, death is the day worth living for. Death. Usually in the West, people don't like to talk about death. No, we don't talk about that. Why not? That we should be talking about that. We should be remembering that every moment, because that is what we're living for. Because death to us is not the end. Death to us is the beginning of the beginning. It's the beginning of the ultimate beginning, which has no end. The birth into this world is the birth into a life which has it has a finite dimension. It ends. But when we leave this world, we never come back, and we never cease to exist also. So let's hear about, what happened in your Thanksgiving experiences. Was there any?
So usually for me, because of Christmas and because of Halloween, Thanksgiving for me is something that I've held on to as a convert, because it's not impermissible to celebrate. So it's kind of like the only time that I feel like I can be with my family without any worries of oh, am I doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing, or Islamically, of course. And so it's something that I've held on to very strongly, because the next holiday coming up is something that, I can't really participate with my family. So it's just something that I hold on to.
Particularly from the Hispanic community, Christmas is a big deal.
Yeah.
And not just a big deal, giving presents and having a jolly time, but they take it's just interesting. Yesterday, right in front of because I live in an area now that's all Spanish speaking. Now I'm again realizing that I need to learn Spanish. When I was in junior high school, I guess I studied Spanish, but I didn't pay attention. Unfortunately, I'm sorry about that. But really, so, the lady, so right in front of my building, you've seen my building. So right in front of my building, these elder ladies, they sell stuff on the street, which is something, perhaps that's something that goes on a lot in Mexico, goes on a lot in Pakistan also. But here, you don't see that in Beverly Hills, but you see it in the lower stratas of economic society. So this lady, so I bought some stuff. I usually buy this secondhand stuff. I like to buy from them anyway, because, you're helping them out and they help you out. You get good stuff, cheap. So all of them, if you just mention God, yes, everything is going. They are very, they are, they just need a little sort of tweaking. They're there, it's, yeah. So, but then again, that Christmas is going to be an issue. So anyway, yeah, so that was a good, just before you finish, was there any interaction in terms of something that Islam came into the narrative yesterday or on Thursday?
Well, I've been Muslim. In February will be 5 years since I converted. And at the beginning of my conversion, there was a lot of tension in my house, and it was a cause for a lot of argumentation and debate. And so that would be my advice, especially to Brother Caleb, is don't go into it like completely like eager to tell them about everything and oh my God, because you think, oh, that this is good for them and you want good for those who you love, right? So you kind of go into it thinking, oh my gosh, like I want to tell them everything because this has changed my life and I want to change your life too.
Absolutely.
But I think I went into it a little too hard. And so now, about 5 years after my conversion, I kind of just have stepped back from it. And I've allowed my parents to just, ask questions if that's what they want to do. And I'll talk to them about it if that's what they want to hear. But talking about Islam has definitely not, I've stepped back from it.
Well, there's going to be a natural barrier, particularly when particularly your children, particularly your daughter now who you raised and we have this tradition, very strong tradition, and all of a sudden, oh, you've just divorced yourself from us, from our traditions. And of course, what happened to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I mean, was he having any kind of problem with his people before he started his da'wat to Tawheed? Absolutely not. He was he was highly respected, if not perhaps one of the most respected in terms of his character. Although he wasn't a tribal chief, he never wanted to be a chief, which is also something about Islamic leadership. Islamic leadership is not, you go out and get votes and I'm going to do this when I get... Leadership in Islam is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to generally people who are the least wanting, and in fact, they run away from it. So Nabi Sallallahu had no problems with his people. Had the Sadiq al-Amin. They said, this is the truthful one who is the most trustworthy. And therefore, when they were about to go back into a tribal war right in front of the Kaaba, because they had to rebuild the Kaaba because of a flood which destroyed actually the Kaaba, and they had to rebuild it. And now the black stone, which is a stone in our tradition, it's mentioned, Allah knows best, that it actually originated from the paradise, and it came down, it was white, and from the sins of the people who connect with that stone and kiss it, in reverence, their bad actions have worn off. In any case, but that from the very time of Abraham, this was a very sanctified, element of the Kaaba. So now, who is going to place that black stone back in its place? So this has tribal implications. So you got some political issues here, because whoever gets to do that, that's going to be like their tribe is going to get a special, honors, and so everybody it should be our honor, no, our honor. No. So it was like getting really intense. So then they said, okay, wait, we'll do one thing. The first person who comes through the entrance towards the mosque, then we'll give them the responsibility to sort this out. And who is the first one who enters in? Lo and behold, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said, everybody was happy. Had the Sadiq al-Amin namtada hukma. This is the truthful, trustworthy person that everybody's content with his. And he came up with a stellar, solution by taking his shawl and giving a corner and and the side of that shawl to every tribe. So everybody, all the tribes were collectively holding that shawl, and he himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, placed the black stone into that shawl. It was lifted up by everyone, and so it became a communal effort rather than a tribally, linked, honor that would cause political repercussions. So this is going to happen. So he was loved by his people, but when he broke from their traditions, so that broke the bond of friendship, kinship even. You came, you just want to disrupt our whole thing, And so this is what happened. So we have to. So the last thing we want to hear about is, about your religion, which has now severed you from them. Did you get that? Right? Well, I had the same thing, this was like 50 plus years ago, and now I don't go and start opening up, my talk but we can look for appropriate instances when something of our Prophet's character can be mentioned, or something, when there's an appropriate sort of opportunity to mention something, and we have to feel that they are responsive. But you cannot push Islam down somebody's throat. La ikraha fi din. And this is a very critical principle. There is no compulsion in religion. You cannot compel anyone to accept Islam. And therefore, in our tradition and in our history, we find that this is what brought the masses into Islam. The Muslims come, they take over politically, they take over authority in the land, in a country, which was the order of the day all over the world. However, rather than slaughtering everyone, and they said, okay, now everyone here, if you want to enter into Islam, welcome, you're our brothers, you're our sisters, and whatever is ours is yours. That's option A. You like that? Welcome. You're not ready for that option? Option B is accept our authority and accept our hierarchy, and you pay a small tax, which is actually amounts to less than what Muslims would pay in zakat and other types of, financial responsibilities. And you remain in our company under our protection. And therefore, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, among the last things that he, instructed, his followers to be careful about, number one, prayers, number two, the slaves, good kindness to the slaves, and ultimately their emancipation, because slavery was all over the world. It was prevalent everywhere. And so that was a very critical thing that he was, he was admonishing about. And thirdly, your responsibility to what we call Ahl al-Dhimma. Ahl al-Dhimma means those who are under our responsibility, meaning the Christians and the Jews and any other peoples who are non-Muslims who are under our authority. We have to take care of them. We have to look after them, and we have to show them exemplary behavior that is going to attract them towards Islam. And that's the biggest part of our responsibility towards them. So as a result of that, most of the nations and masses of people who entered into Islam, they didn't hear a single word in terms of a lecture, in terms of a presentation, and they didn't read a book. They saw Islam in Muslims. So that's what our people need to see in us. And if they see that, then, and with our du'as, then we won't have to say much, and probably saying much will be counterproductive, as Catherine says. So, yeah, but they will, inshallah. You keep making dua, My own people, 50 years, nobody has accepted Islam in my family except my younger brother at one point, decades ago, but he didn't remain. So you just have to continue. And we've seen people have gone, and then right at the end of their lives, parents accept Islam, brothers, so we have hope. Khair, who else has got some? I'm sorry, sister, I went off on a tangent there. I shouldn't have done that. But that's,
I love your other topic, don't get me wrong, but this is really good. I just had a question, because you said about Christmas. Is it like, can we not be with our family on Christmas, or
No, there's no problem with that.
just
Just,
not participate?
you just cannot involve in things which are not legal in Sharia.
like presents. But is it wrong if we receive the presents?
to
Like if we receive the presents?
I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, because my family
Giving,
is like
giving
very,
and taking presents is a very Islamic. It's a very human thing.
oh,
Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "Tahadu tahabu."
okay.
Give gifts to one another and increase in love and affection. So take an opportunity. But they're going to be drinking things that we don't drink. They're going to be eating things we don't eat. They might be. I don't think they do that much anymore. But they might be saying things that we don't, agree with. So we don't engage in that, and we don't go along with those things.
Oh.
But we don't. I wouldn't, stand up and start, criticizing or Amr bil Ma'ruf and then play policeman or something like that. No.
Okay.
Just let them, do what they're going to do and appreciate what's appreciable. Now, since the munasabah is Jesus alayhi salam, like he was the final prophet to Bani Israel, and he was the Ulul Azm, the 5 greatest of the prophets, even though there was 124,000 plus, And so we celebrate Isa alayhi salam. In fact, we celebrate him more than Christians do because we're following, If you look at Muslims, they look more like Jesus than most Christians do. That was said by one Muslim. He came to the church, and and the pastor was having a problem because he was inviting the people of the church to Islam. And so the guy had a big problem. And so one of the church members, he said, "Wait a minute, pastor. As a matter of fact, he looks more like Jesus than you do. So can you explain that one? Anyway, Khair, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I love that part about Jesus. But even speaking from the commercial side of it, there was a gentleman in Turkey who we took the image of Santa Claus. He was the original one in Turkey. We just painted him white here and commercialized it. So I could see doing that more so than the Thanksgiving, because one thing Shaykh Jabril said, he said for him, speaking for him, because not all scholars are going to speak the same, have the same opinion based on their facts they've collected. I understand that and I respect that. But he said, we don't celebrate anything with genocide for him. Shaykh Jabril from Chapman said, we don't celebrate genocide, the genocide of people, because this came up in a Friday topic, but, or Friday question, I should say. But I was kind of, so piggybacking that, fast forward, because this was a few weeks ago, fast forward, a lady from the Mosque in Los Angeles, where I live, she was being polite, and she thought she'd sent Happy Thanksgiving emails to everybody, and I said, no, she didn't. And so I said, okay, breathe, let it go by. Don't respond out of anger. Just wait. Okay. And Los Angeles has some very powerful Muslimas. They're very educated. I mean, I'm talking doctors and blah, 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 blah. I said, sister, I would suggest you educate yourself on this topic of today. And she hasn't responded, so maybe she's just upset as I was.
Well, people wouldn't know that,
Yeah.
Who would know that? What I've even heard, and it's really ironical, and it's really sad, that you have a people that the whole concept, actually the concept of the establishment of the United States of America, was essentially, or ostentiously, it was supposed to be that they were under religious, tyranny. The Catholic Church was tyrannizing the Protestants, is basically what it was, and so it was a hijrah. Now, you leave one tyranny and you create another one, So this is not on, But anyway, this is how it is. And if you look in the traditions, this is another huge point for Islam. Wherever Islam went, and I've even heard accounts, I don't know how true, and I would imagine it would be, because traditional peoples are generally not hostile to people who come. Anywhere you go in traditional peoples, a guest is a guest, right? Somebody comes as a guest and you welcome a guest. So, there's narrations that when these pilgrims and people started coming, so the indigenous people initially, these are guests, so honor them and be kind to them. We even heard that, this turkey thing was, The indigenous people were offering turkeys to the people who had now left and made hijrah, So there was an expression of goodwill. Now, had that goodwill have actually nurtured, but then, you need a basis, you need a foundation for that. That foundation wasn't there. Islam gave us that foundation. Therefore, when Muslims went to any country, rather than doing that, what they did was they, just as I mentioned, okay, we are here to guide you, but we're not here to dishonor you. We're not here to humiliate you. We're not here to torture you. We're certainly not here to commit genocide. And this has never happened under real Islamic rule. What's going on now in the name of Islam and this insanity by some of these maniacs, this is the farthest, that you can be from the whole concept of Islam, which is Rahmah. Allah is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, right? The merciful, the most beneficent. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a rahmah lil alameen, a mercy for the entire universe. And so you're going to become a scourge, for no. So anyway, but on that note, so most people have no clue about history. And if you ask people, for example, I live in Pakistan. Where's Pakistan? Oh, Pakistan. That's somewhere in Africa or something. Really, you find educated people have no clue really about history and geography. Because number one, why am I worried about history? Because I need to live. I need to pay my rent at the end of the day, at the end of the month. Some people at the end of the day, and I have to feed my family, and so people they don't know they don't really know what's going on. And in certain levels of society, it's even more, pronounced. So people, and therefore people also, we as Muslims, people, come off the wall with really weird stuff about Islam. So we have to kind of understand where they're coming from in the sense that, what do you expect them to think? The only information they're getting is off the media, which is, we know how that goes, right? So if we just ram them, ram heads with people like that, then all you're going to have is some blood and tension, and there's going to be a mess. However, idfa billati hiya ahsan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, repel what is bad with what is good. You don't repel bad with bad, then you just get more bad. But you repel bad with good. And then what happens? Good has the tendency to become transformed in its interaction with good. There's a chemistry, that happens, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to learn this, and this is how Islam spread throughout the world. In India, as I've been in the subcontinent for many decades, it's very interesting that on the one hand, Christians and Jews are much closer to Islam, obviously. They're from the Abrahamic tradition. They have much in common. Hindus, on the other hand, that's quite different. That's real shirk, hardcore, deities, a lot of them, And also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, you'll find the most, animosity and the most sort of belligerent people against you. As a people in general, it doesn't mean everybody, but the people of the Jewish community, which is ironic because they were originally the children of prophets, which tells us that, you don't become a member of the club and then it's over and you're a member for life. It's a continuous process. Okay, and the people of shirk, polytheism, because you're inviting to the 180 degrees away from what their basic belief is, that there's so many gods, and we say no, there's one. So now in India, how Islam, really, took hold. Of course, there were military campaigns, no doubt about that. But actually, it was these saintly people who would move from place to place, and the people would observe these saintly people and their character and the nur and the light that used to, emanate from these people, and they would just, we want to be like you. And this is basically the invitation of Sahaba, Kunu mithlna, be like us. If you like what you see, then we invite you to be like us. Yeah, we're ready for that. And so nation after nation, tribe after tribe, people after people accepted Islam. And there was no long discussion, there wasn't long debates, there wasn't, nothing like that, So we need to take lesson from that. So we also need to learn about our history and other people's history as well. I think social studies is very important for Muslims. It was a subject that I used to hate as a kid, like everything else in school. So I didn't, in fact, I dropped out of school, as a musician. I wasn't interested in any of that stuff. But then after accepting Islam, then I realized that these subject matters, not in the context that we were taught as children, but from the context that we are the best ummah sent forth for the benefit of mankind. So we need to know something about the mankind that we've been sent to benefit. If we don't know about them, as our sister said, well, Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, folks. Well, we're clueless of the fact that it was a big, it was a great score for some, and it was a great disaster for others. And so things like this, we need to educate ourselves on, we as Muslims, and condone and sort of, absorb and sort of roll, as it were, with the ignorance of others. And this was one of the salient characteristics of our Prophet ﷺ, that never would someone increase in ignorance against our Prophet ﷺ, except he would increase in indulgence and acceptance and return in what we call hilm. Hilm means that forbearance when you don't have to. In other words, I give an example like, if you're a criminal and the policeman catches you and binds you in handcuffs and throws you in jail, you're going to have to be patient. I mean, you can jump up and scream and shout and kick, but it's not going to get you anywhere. You have to be patient, like it or not, right? On the other hand, suppose the policeman who's arresting the criminal spits in his face and curses at him and tries to hit him, and the policeman says, "Relax. I know it's tough. You're going to have to face but we have to do this. It's for your good." I don't think except a Muslim policeman would do that, but this is called hilm. In other words, I can take full retribution from you. I could, do anything. And being a police, I could shoot you in the head too, and I could probably get away with it. You know how that goes. But because I have this quality of hilm, this is a very noble quality, that we meet ignorance with, forbearance and understanding and actually love. Because every human being, after all, he's a manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, qudra, of his power. Every human being is Allah's creation, right? So that gives every human being a sanctity. And that is part of our Sharia. Every human being, the sanctity of human life, their property, their dignity, whoever they are, they're Muslims or whoever they are. He's a human being, he has a dignity that we must respect. And when we start looking at people like that, it will be a big change, rather than looking at everybody like we're angry at everyone and we need to get back and take it out on, if we want to take it out on somebody, take it out on our nafs and shaitan. These are our enemies, not human beings. We do not condone wrong action, but every human being has a sanctity that we have to understand. We have to recognize that. Allah give us all tawfiq. Sometimes that's very difficult to do, But our Prophet ﷺ gave us, and this was a quality of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that brought one of the great Jewish rabbis into Islam in Medina. And in fact, yes, there were 4 well-known scholars of Medina who actually accepted Islam. Not many of them did. And actually, Nabi ﷺ said, if 12 of them would have accepted Islam, the whole pack would have entered. But that didn't happen. But 4 prominent rabbis accepted Islam. One of them, his name was Abdullah ibn Sa'na, radiyallahu anhu. So he narrates his story. He said, I had seen all of the signs and all of the qualities mentioned in the Torah and mentioned in our scriptures about the last prophet to come, which is why they were there in Medina in the first place, because they had recognized that was an area that seemed to be the area which the last prophet was to come also. Yes. And that's why they were, what are they doing in the middle of the Arabian desert? I mean, what's going on there? So that's what was going on. That was the main thing that was actually kept them in that particular place, waiting for the last prophet. And they used to tell the Arabs, they said, look, when our prophet comes, then you'll see, we'll show you guys, Now, the problem was when the prophet did come, he was not from their direct lineage. He was not from Bani Israel. Moreover, he was not from the children of Isaac, but he was from the children of his brother, his half-brother, Ishmael. And so that was a no-go for most of them. In any case, so this Abdullah ibn Sa'na had seen all of these signs and all of these characteristics, but there was one left, and it was this sign, that he will not be shown, there will not be increase of ignorance displayed to him, except that he will show an equal amount, if not more, forbearance and patience in the face of ignorance. So he came up with a plot to test him. Yeah. So what he did was he said, Ya Muhammad, I see that you because actually they were cash strapped, they were in economical difficulties, and so Prophet ﷺ would take loans and then pay them back, not for himself, for the community. And much of the time it was from Jewish merchants that he would take loans and then pay them back, and that was fine. So he came, he said, he said, I'm a rich merchant and I have plenty. Whenever you want a loan, we're here. I'm here. Just don't look anywhere else. Okay, fine. So some loans were secured, and they set a time for the repayment. So when the time of the repayment came, some days before that, so he comes to the place of where the Prophet ﷺ was seated with his companions, and he says, "Oh Muhammad," and very tough. He said, "You know what day it is today?" He said, "It's such and such date. You remember, you've got 2-3 days, to pay my debt. And you, sons of Abdul Muttalib, you're known to be people who don't pay on time." And you can imagine he's talking like this to the Prophet Muhammad and his companions. And among them was Umar. And Umar was known to be a very, very tough fellow, And he was in Jahiliyyah and in Islam. So Umar is looking at this guy like, okay, just give me the sign and I'll take him out, And then, in fact, he said, "Who do you think you are? How can you talk to the Prophet of Allah like this?" So Rasulullah, what he told him, he said, "Umar, relax." He said, and it's so beautiful in Arabic. I mean, you can't get the soul of this sentence in English, but it basically, "Ana wa sahibi ahwaju ila ghayri hadha." He says, "Me and my companion." Now this fellow is cursing him and bad-mouthing him, and he's saying, "Me and my companion, we are in need of other than that." In other words, you don't have to jump up in his face and and tell him all this. You need to tell me to be punctual and pay the rights that are over you to others, and you can tell him that he should do so. Request his rights in a nice way. This is what we needed to hear from you. So now he's seeing, okay, check. The last box that needed checking, check. So then he said, okay, even though the time had not come, actually, he said, "Okay, Rahman, go with him, and whatever, we have now in Beit al-Mal, which is the general treasury." He said, "Okay, now go with him and give him his whatever his due, and give him some extra." That was always Nabi alayhi wasallam's habit. He would always pay back and give something extra. We always try and pay back and, take $10 off or take off $5. No, we'll add something. Okay. So on the way, so Umar is really said, "How can you, He said, "Umar, do you know who I am?" So he explained to him who he was, and he said, "So Now I'm really confused, right? You know, you're a Jewish scholar and you're a rabbi and you're talking to the Prophet of Allah, whether, you know, at least, you know, you should have some, you know, kind of, you know. He said, look, and then he explained to him, I was just testing him because this was the quality that I had to find out, does he have it or not? You know, he is going to be increased in ignorance, and ignorance is going to be increasingly thrust at him, and he's going to repel that with hilm, forbearance, patience, and beautiful character. So he said, Umar, listen to what I have to say. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So he said, I bear witness that there's one Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. He accepted Islam. So this is how Islam actually spreads. And I don't know about, you know, others, but generally, and myself included, when I accepted Islam, I didn't know a single ayat of Quran. I didn't know a single hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. It was a journey, a long story, but it was a journey through many countries and meeting with Muslims. Ultimately, I said, no, that's what it is. So, and then many people are like that. Most people are affected by what they see. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So we really went off on that tangent, but I suppose it's not a bad tangent, no? Yeah? So what else is Thanksgiving? The thing I wanted to make, the one point that I would like to make, though, is this concept of Thanksgiving. This is something that, you know, they're starting to talk about this a lot, because people are starting to realize, every kind of people, that we're not grateful. And showing gratitude, they're even showing now scientifically how beneficial it is psychologically, physiologically. Well, we know that, right? When you please Allah, He's going to do everything, you know, positive for you. But this is something that we need to, you know, exercise all of the time, gratitude. You know, every single thing, everything we look around, our own selves and everything around it, it is all Allah's blessing, all of which requires gratitude. And our life is basically between two states. One is patience and then gratitude. Patience for what may not be what we like or what, you know, makes us comfortable, and gratitude for all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors. Among them, the tests that He puts us through that we don't like, because that's actually ultimately in our best interest. That's for our development, without which we don't develop. Without tests and trials, the student doesn't advance, right? So that's part of it.
You know, we plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. We, of course, had a different topic for today, but I thank Allah for this. I really thank Allah for this, because I had, as you know, we mentioned Shaykh Hashim was just running a few minutes behind, so I had the honor of just kind of touching base with everyone. And then I just wanted to kind of, when opportunities like this do arise, I'd like to just check in with the group and the family and just kind of see how, specifically after a holiday, how it went, right? Because people, different situations with the family, and then it led to this, which is beautiful, you know. So and organically, it's just kind of like, you know. So if it's okay with everyone, and of course with you, Shaykh Hashim, if we can stay on this topic, that'll be great. The whole, everything you're mentioning, the Thanksgiving, all this put together, what we've been doing the last 20-30 minutes, I think is beautiful. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, I'm here at your, as they say, at your disposal. You want to dispose of me, you can do that too. But
Right.
the point is that that's fine. I did want to touch on the environment thing a
Sure,
little bit,
yeah.
you know, which is also an extension of that theme, if you will.
Yeah,
Really,
giving thanks.
because, you know, and we're talking about gratitude. So what about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, and not only created us in an existing state, He could have created us in a state of an existence where we're like in a mass of water, or we could be just sort of floating around in the air. But He's given us an amazing environment for this whole scenario, this whole drama of obedience and trying to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, you know, ordains and his orders and His abstaining from His prohibitions. But the entire, you know, the whole stage that we've been placed upon, this whole drama of life, it's such a fantastic, you know, particularly we in California, you know, it's just such an amazing place. It's got everything, you know, and we're destroying it. We're destroying it. So our environment, and this was the munasaba, or the opportunity, or what do we say, munasabat? The context. For the past couple of weeks, I've been actually, this is what I've been talking about in the Jummah talks, in the khutbah. So, because we had this, there was recently an environment and a climate, because of the severe climate changing which is going on, which is also initiated by human negligence and human disobedience. And so people are having to take it seriously, even though they don't want to, but they have to, because the whole planet is on the verge of destruction, which would ultimately culminate in the extinction of the species. If we don't have a planet, then we no longer have a place to exist. So this concept of, or this reality that we live in an environment that we need to be grateful for, and being grateful for that means what? Means that we look after it. However, like so many other areas, we find that we Muslims somehow take the back seat in all of these issues. I mean, how many Muslims do we know who are really taking some stand or doing something, or even worried and concerned and talking about environment? Not many. Not that I'm aware of. This is really serious, because we should be in the forefront of all of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that when we were created, our father Adam alayhi salam, when he was created, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an announcement to humanity, or to the angels, or to the community that was available at that point, which were the angels. And the jinn were also available, the tribe of creation, which was created from fire, which Satan himself is from those creations, which we don't see, but they are obviously present. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, and he created him out of the earth, by the way, and if you take a cross-section of our bodies, or every part of us, it all comes from the earth. Everything in us and everything of us, it comes from the earth. We are from the earth. And the earth, by the way, is humble. It's under our feet. Fire, it's not humble. It's very arrogant. Look what it does to our forests. It's quite a destructive. It can be, when contained and controlled and utilized, it can be a very useful force. But out of control, it's a disaster. And this is Shaitan. This is the Satan. He was created from fire, and fire. It has this characteristic of rising high. And so arrogance was what actually brought the demise of Satan, because he wouldn't bow down to Adam. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I am creating a Khalifa. And I'm going to explain this word Khalifa in a little bit, but we should become familiar with this term, Khalifa. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa. I am creating and placing a Khalifa in the earth. Khalifa means a successor, basically. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not to be succeeded in his attributes and in his actions, because he doesn't need anyone, and nobody can, because he's creator and everything else is creation. However, so what is the meaning of successor? Successor meaning someone who's going to be placed on the earth to be responsible, to live a life as the creator has created him to live, at the same time establishing that way of life and an environment in that planet on the earth in the way that the creator has designed and desires. So the angels were ordered to prostrate. And they say the prostration meaning to bow. They're not bowing worshiping him. They are bowing in recognition of his position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. However, Satan said nothing doing. Arrogance, racism. Actually, the first racist was Satan. Ana khayrun min. I'm better than him. Why you're better than him? Because he's made from dirt, lowly thing. I'm made from fire. I'm a big deal. So this is, whereas the opposite was the fact. As we all know, the prophets didn't come from Satan's lineage; they all came from Adam alayhi salam's lineage, and those who adopt and embrace humility, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's principle is He elevates them, and those who adopt arrogance, which is self-elevation, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala degrades and disgraces them. So when we put ourselves down for the sake of Allah in the way that He loves, showing humility, then Allah elevates. And the opposite is also true. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has announced that He has created for this earth a Khalifa, a vice regent. So that means that not only He's a vice regent for actions and worshiping and setting up, living a life according to and society according to the ways of Sharia. What about the earth itself? If He's the vice regent on the earth, in the earth, is He not also vice regent of the earth? Does that make sense? Or He's responsible for all that other stuff, but the earth, no, that's not our business. That's not our problem. It is our problem. It is our responsibility. And therefore, we as Muslims should understand that. And when we look at the environment, it has much deeper connotations and it implies much more to us. There's a sanctity of the earth. Just like we mentioned, every human being is sanctified because he's a creation of Allah. Similarly, this earth and everything in it is all the creation of Allah. Therefore, everything, the earth itself and everything in it is sanctified because it's Allah's creation. Nobody can create. One ounce of dirt, can the mankind create that? No, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything, and very interestingly, Nabi alayhi salam says, وَجُعِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ لِي مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. The earth has been made for me a masjid and a means of purification. And he also he illustrates and he elucidates on that the former peoples, when the time of prayers used to come, they used to have to offer them in a specific place. Whereas we Muslims can offer our salat anywhere because the entire world is a masjid. So if the entire world is a masjid, isn't a masjid a place of sanctity? And everything in it, like this is the masjid, that's the masjid's clock, It's not just a clock, that's the clock of the masjid, that's the rug, Yeah?
I learned this week that Jews are allowed to go into a mosque. They cannot go into a church, and that's why in this lesson, it was televised. That's why I was told they were so well, and then plus their cousins, as far as Jews and Islam. Okay, but what my point is, are we allowed, just as out of curiosity, to educate ourselves so that we're not ignorant on certain subjects? Are we allowed to go into their place of worship?
To go in there for some reason, you're not allowed to go in there and worship like they do, worship what they do and how they do. To go in there and see what they're doing and perhaps even give some talk on Islam or anything, or just to see what they're doing or understand or have some meeting. That's not an issue. No problem. The other way around, it's problematic for some of our scholars because whether the purity of a person who is not a Muslim is in question, because they are not in a state of purity. And so can they enter so Imam Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, he was quite staunch on that, and he did not allow the non-Muslims to enter the mosque because of this. And in fact, the Quran says, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ, that the polytheists are impure. And he took that in the literal sense. And so therefore, in his school of thought, they don't allow the non-Muslims. But the other great scholars and mujtahids, they had a different opinion on that. And they feel that, no, that has to do with their inner being was impure, but the physical impurity was not of the nature that would prevent them from entering into them. And there was instances where Rasulullah actually had non-Muslims. In fact, there was a fellow by the name of Thumama ibn Uthal. He was the chief of Bani Hanifa, which is also, it's congruent with what we were talking about. He was actually caught and brought in as a prisoner to Medina. And he was the chieftain of the tribe of Bani Hanifa, which was a very strong tribe in Najd, in the area, where the rulers of Saudi Arabia, they're from there. So he was brought to Medina and he was tied up in the masjid. They don't have a prison, they don't have a jail, So very interestingly, he was tied up in the masjid. And he was tied to the pole in the masjid, and very amazing story. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to him and said, Ya Thumama mada indak? So, oh, Thumama, what do you have to say? What do you have? So he was a chieftain of the tribe, and the Arabs, with their language, they were very eloquent in their language. That was the Quran came with this eloquence that just baffled them, just totally. But even the common Arab would speak things, those who know the language, it's just amazing. He said, Ya Muhammad, in qataltani faqatalta dha damin. When atlaqtani, atlaqta shakiran. In Arabic, it's so beautiful. He says, if you kill me, then you will kill someone whose blood is very expensive. In other words, watch out. On the other hand, if you show kindness to me, then you will have shown kindness to someone who knows how to show gratitude. So it's in your best interest not to kill me. And moreover, you should actually let me go and be nice to me, and I'll reward you handsomely for that. Nabi Sallallahu didn't reply to him. He left him. Came back the next day. He left him there the whole day. He came back the next day, asked him the same question, and he was given the same answer. Third day he comes. Same question, same answer. So then Nabi Sallallahu said, okay, let him go. Atlaq Thumama. Let him go. Let him go. He went outside. He went out into the, into the area, outside the masjid. And he took a bath. He came back in the masjid. He said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasul. I bear witness that there's in the oneness of Allah and the prophethood of Muhammad, peace be. So what's the deal? The deal is, he said, I was just observing. 3 days he was just observing Muslims in that masjid. And he said, I would have said this earlier, but I didn't want you to think, I'm just trying to get loose, but once I've been given my freedom, then on my own freedom of will, I'm coming and I'm telling you this. So yes, so the masjid. So the last thing I wanted to just mention was, so the earth itself is as a masjid. The business says, so it has its own sanctity, everything on the earth. And it's also tahuran, when we don't have water, we actually purify ourselves with the earth. So it has a much broader and much more deeper, meaning and sanctity to us. It should. And we can talk about all the other elements, water and, and food and air and trees and the ecosystems. So we as Muslims, we have a much deeper, and actually I have a whole retreat, sort of a 2-day workshop that we do just on the environment. Yeah, it's part of my, holistic health series. Maybe sometime we'll do that. And I think, particularly people who are converts, they would be more sort of prone to these kind of things, But sometime in the future we can talk about that more. But I just wanted to throw that out there because of the munasabah, because of the context of this was that last month was that the meeting on the environment and what we need to do. So what do we need to do as Muslims? At least we need to start thinking about it and start coming up. And I'm writing an article which will probably be published in our website, so you can see that. And for the next few Jummahs, that's what I've been talking about. I'll continue talking about that in our Jummah talks and khutbahs, inshallah. So anyway, that's food for thought. And, let's think about these things.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shaykh Hashim Ahmad, director religious director at Darul Falad, the Tustin Islamic Center. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time, honoring us and coming. And thank you so much for being able to be very versatile in your delivery today. Organic discussion and then environment. You covered the whole thing and more, and I appreciate that. And I hope it was beneficial for everyone here. And I thank you all very much for your patience. The only reason I didn't want to stop because I felt there was a lot of participation going on, and this is what we want: engagement and participation. So Shaykh Hashim, thank you as always. It's always a privilege and honor to be with you. Just maybe a question or two. Of course, if there's any questions, we have a few minutes because we have to pray at 3:15, so we have a few minutes. But in terms of the environment, of course, is very important. So there's many organizations that are, non-Muslim organizations. I agree with you. I'm not sure how many Muslims are out there advocating for the environment, right, consistently. You have Heal the Bay. You have many different organizations that are doing like beach cleanups and things like that. Can you give us some practical advice or tips or action items what we can do like today? Have you or are you planning on organizing maybe a beach cleanup day or something like that, where you have a bunch of Muslims that come out and literally clean the beaches, right? Something like that. Is there something you can help us with?
So there's a lot we can do, and it starts, ibda biman ta'ul, as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, begin with yourself and those who you are responsible for. So why don't we begin with ourselves, clean up the beaches and clean up the globe? Inshallah, we'll move that. But that the sphere, radiates outwardly. So let's begin with ourselves. We all make wudu every day, right? I'm just giving you an example, and if we start thinking along these lines, then I'm sure you'll come up with a lot of creative solutions that we can do individually, family-wise, collectively as well. We all make wudu, right? Alhamdulillah. We all take baths. We all wash dishes. We even wash our cars, which I've mentioned, for us, there are times when it is fard, it is compulsory for us to take bath. Sometimes it's sunnah for us to take bath. Sometimes it's okay just to take bath. As for cars, there's no compulsory bath for cars, by the way. You don't have to give your car a bath, So the usage of water, which is now, and particularly here in California, it should be a sobering, wake-up call that we find our reservoirs are just about dry. The state of California, okay? So let us look at water. So we all perform wudu. Are we using the amount of wudu that we need to use, or are we wasting a lot of water? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, if you're performing your wudu on a riverbank, still you don't waste the water, because every drop of water is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nobody can make that water except Allah. So we have in that workshop, we do an experiment. We do a little exercise, and then people get the idea. So what we do is we say, okay, fulan or fulana, some brother or sister, okay, you're going to just go and perform wudu. And what we do is we put a bucket under the water tap. Okay? So they turn on the water tap, and usually it's like full blast, if not at least half. And then they're making wudu, and people tend to even talk, and they might do something. And this water is just flowing. In the meantime, this bucket is filling up. So by the time they've actually finished their wudu, the whole bucket is full of water, which might be 2-3 gallons of water. Then we say, okay, now you're going to perform a full wudu with this. And we give them exactly like this, a half liter of water. Now in Hajj, in the early days, if you were even got half of that, it was a great, gift from Allah. Otherwise, there was no water around. People used to have to carry their own water in Hajj and Umrah and these things. So we give them this half liter of water, and we don't tell them how you're going to do it, and they figure it out. Human beings, they have a lot of gray area here. It works if you use it. So they realize, and they just very carefully, and they actually make their wudu with a half liter of water. So that means that the 3 gallon of water that you used in the first wudu, as opposed to this, it means that we've wasted at least 2.5 gallons of water. That's in one wudu. And suppose you make wudu 5 times for your 5 times salat. So that means, suppose 2 times 5 means 10 gallons of water for you. Suppose your wife, 20. Suppose your 5 kids, it goes up to like 50, 100 gallons of water wasted in wudu alone every day in every house. Wudu. What about washing dishes? How do you wash your dishes? Again, turn on the tap full go and run the We don't need to do that. You can just take, if you need, I don't even like to use soap anyway because it's full of toxins and all of that. So you're much better off just rubbing with your hands and just get the thing and clean it off. And water has, it's a purification instrument in any case. Anyway, if you have to use some soap or something like that, you can just soap the things and then with a little bit of water, rinse them off, you know. I think dishwashers are a bit more economical as well. But in any case, so you're getting the idea, right? When we wash clothing or we wash things, we take a bath, we take a ghusl, you know, we don't have to sit under the shower for 10, 20 minutes. We just need to, you know, remove the impurities. That's it. It's a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, right? So if we just start with that, imagine how much water we would be able to, how many Muslims here in the whole, let's leave alone the other people. Let's just look at Muslims. How many Muslims in Southern California? Any clue? Hundreds of thousands, 500,000. So suppose 500,000 Muslims start implementing that. 500,000 Muslims per day, how much water are they going to save? I think we have a reservoir right there in a month. Really. You know, as they say, every little bit counts. It really, really counts, you know. Just a gallon saved every day by one person is going to be how much? So things like this, these are practical things that we can actually do. It's not like we have to go and, you know, demonstrate and bring out a big procession and, you know, write a petition to the White House. You can do this yourself. There are initiatives on huge scales which only governments can actually, you know, initiate. But there's much that we can do as a human being, as an individual. That we can do as a family. We can initiate in our community. We can initiate, you know, we can collaborate with other, you know, communities. We can collaborate with Muslims. We can collaborate with non-Muslims. Everything that's good, we collaborate with anybody on good stuff, you know. And if the other people are doing good things, you know, that's fine. Nabi Sallallahu said, I was invited to there was a session, we don't have a lot of time, but it basically, someone was wronged in Mecca before Islam. And some big shot from a big shot tribe, you know, took the goods from some poor seller who wasn't backed by a big tribe and said, get lost, you know, basically. So this fellow went up on one of the hills in Mecca and said, you know, hey, people of Mecca, the people of honor, gather, you know. Anyway, so the people all came and then he told his story. And so the people of Mecca, the honorable people of Mecca, they gathered and became one voice saying, anybody who wrongs anybody here in Mecca, we're going to stand with that person against the tyrant, whoever that might be from our clan, might be. And Rasulullah was also present there. And he said, I was also in that gathering and I also attended that. And if I was invited to that today as a Muslim, I would also attend it because it was a noble act. Regardless of who is doing it, you know, it's an act of nobility and an act of, you know, of goodness. So if people are doing good things, do good things with them. And the wrong things that they do, don't join them in the wrong that they do, but join them in the good that they do. No harm in that. It's all the better. So hopefully that will give an eye. And then you can, we have the thing we call qiyas. You can, with an analogy, you can, you know, look at other things, look at food consumption, look at waste, and it goes on and on and on. But with that kind of thought process, we can probably figure out a lot that we can do ourselves.
Thank you so much, Shaykh Hashim. Just gems coming from this man. May Allah bless you. I really appreciate it. Of course, just starting small and working our way out. So very good point. So brothers and sisters and dearest guests, we have to call it a session there. A few announcements and then we are all good to go. The first, of course, I just want to thank Shaykh Hashim Ahmad again for joining us. Thank you very much, Ya Shaykh. And I want to thank you all very much on this weekend to take time out and join us here as well. First announcement here, please don't forget that there is a marriage event coming up for those that are seeking marriage. This is on Saturday, December 11th. It's going to be somewhere in Orange County. Of course, once you register, all those details will be there. It's provided to us by Half Our Deen, along with a collaboration or a number of different mosques. So the flyer you'll see outside on the bulletin and I think on our social media as well. So if you or anybody that you know is seeking marriage, this might be a good opportunity. Second thing is our community hike that we like to try to do every month, getting out into the nature, reflecting and just building It's going to be Saturday, December 4th at 7 a.m. Saturday, December 4th at 7 a.m. Of course, you can find the information on our Facebook as well. Recycling, of course, we're on this topic as well. So please don't forget. I know the green recycling can is there in the back. Eventually, if someone can pull that over to the center, I would really appreciate it. And then we can go ahead and recycle our bottles and cans over there as well. Please don't forget also a very special announcement this coming Tuesday, as I've mentioned, and we'll try to keep reminding, is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is this coming Tuesday, where you can give back to organizations that might be close to your heart. And I hope IAOC is close to your heart, because that donation that you give, of course, is going to help with the operations that we have here, the New Muslim class, the outreach services, the youth, you name it, right? Our prison outreach program, all the different services and the programs here at IAOC. So Giving Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, all you do is simply just go IIOC.live on Tuesday and go ahead and donate whatever amount that you can. If you want to write a check, you can make that out to IIOC. Again, that's this coming Tuesday, Giving Tuesday. Please mark your calendars. Whatever amount you can give would go a long way for us here at IIOC. And having said that, that's the call to prayer, the adhan. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. If we can put the tables and chairs away, brothers and sisters, on the racks, including the speaker's table, and then we'll make our way to the prayer for prayer. We'll be all good to go. Please help yourself to any snacks in the back. We do have to put it away like in a minute or two. And this way we'll see you guys all there. Thank you all very much. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Hey.